Welcome back to Travel With Us a While podcast. My name is Bron Hogan, and today's guest is someone who made a decision that many of us quietly dream about, but few actually ever act upon. Kristy Halvorsen had what most would consider a successful life, a 14-year career as a firefighter, a beautiful home, stability, security, and a future that seemed comfortably mapped out. Yet beneath all of that was a persistent question: what if there is another way to live? Instead of ignoring the question, Kristy followed it. She sold her dream home, stepped away from her career, moved into a 200-foot Airstream, and spent the next 7 years traveling, living off-grid, following the seasons, and discovering that the greatest adventure isn't found on a map, it's found within herself. Her new memoir, Perfect Unfolding, explores what happens when you stop living according to expectations and begin listening to the life that is quietly calling us. Today, we're going to travel with Kristy through these lessons she's learned about freedom, simplicity, home, nature, courage, and what it really means to trust the unfolding journey. So grab a cuppa, settle in, and travel with us a while as we welcome Kristy Halvorsen. Welcome, Kristy.
Thank you, Bron, and thank you for that. That was beautiful. I would say it's lovely to be here, and I've enjoyed listening to some of your podcasts and learning about you, and it feels like we have a lot in common.
We do. We do indeed. And I think that's why it resonated with me. And I thought, yes, I like people who resonate with me, because if they're other people, it will resonate with them too, and the listeners will enjoy it. And your story
Yes.
is remarkable.
Well, thank you. Do you have a favorite part, or do you have something like you would like me to lead off with?
No, I think if you just maybe, I have a few things. I thought, what finally convinced you to leave? If you'd share with our listeners, what
Yes.
made you decide I'm going to stop this? Because hadn't you
Yes.
just got a promotion?
Well, I had a promotion. It had been 6 years, so I was an officer in the fire department. So I ran one of the fire stations in the town where I worked, and that was a position that a lot of people like tried their whole career to get to, and then once you're there, it's a really really nice position, and like you get to work with your crew. There's a salary increase, and it's just a great place to be in the fire department, the station officer position. But I'd been doing it for 6 years, and I enjoyed my job, but I had gotten exposed to some chemicals. So where I work, there was a lot of forest fires, and people think, well, how are you going to get exposed to chemicals in a forest fire? But people often dump their garbage out in the forest. So,
Wow.
so there would be tires and refrigerators and beds and paint, and those burn. And then we don't have respiratory protection out there, so we breathe it. So I got very sick, and then I was getting better after about 2 years of really working on my health. And then I hurt my knee very bad at the fire department. And the knee
Yeah.
injury was when I really was thinking, I wanted to live similar to the way I am now when I retired. And I was in my mid 30s, and I thought, I don't know if I'm going to make it to retirement. And then if I do, I don't know what kind of shape I'll be in.
That's
And
true.
so that was one of the biggest blessings in disguises I've ever had was the health issues at work. And I was 35 when I injured my knee, and that was kind of the turning point when I said, you know what, I'm gonna start making a plan, an exit strategy. And then when I was 38, was when I was able to just cut all the strings, sell my house, left my job, sold my just about everything I owned, and hit the road in my truck and trailer.
Fantastic. And how did your family and friends react when you decided you were going to do this? Because there you were in this, what they probably envy, some of them that hadn't got there yet, and you're just giving it up.
Yes, a lot of people at work couldn't understand because firefighters where I was, we got paid fairly well. We had really, really good pensions
Yes.
and, all the benefits and a job we loved. And people were like, why would you go? And then my family was kind of used to me doing kind of what seemed crazy things. Because my original, what I went to university for was engineering, and I left that to begin firefighting because I just got bored. It wasn't all that great sitting in an office all day. So this new transition into selling everything and wandering, it was strange, and yet my closest friends and family were like, "Well, she does strange things like that." So some people were concerned, and but there was no one saying you shouldn't go. Everybody was kind of in awe that I had the guts to make a big change like that. And then when I hit the road, and back then it was just my closest family and friends. I had a small group on Facebook following me, but they were seeing the pictures, and kind of like you've mentioned before, traveling is so much about the people you meet when you're out there. And
Yes.
so I would tell stories and, share about people I've met and what I learned from them and on and on and on. And then people just began began being in awe of the way I was living. And it felt unique to me, but it never felt all that glamorous or special. It was just another way of living. And I'm
Yes.
in my ninth year now of wandering like this, and it
Nine.
just
Wonderful.
yeah, it's I'm so glad I took the chance. That's like
This is good.
it's the best thing I've ever done.
Absolutely. So, what about when you were in the Airstream? What did you think you needed that you decided later, "Oh, why did I bother to bring this?"
Yeah, there's a lot of little things, I think especially early on, I had many downsizings of just getting rid of extra stuff. And, in my book, I share about how I don't do laundry that often because probably you remember,
My goodness.
you wear the same clothes until they stink or they're just full of stains,
Yes, absolutely.
And there's one piece of clothing that I would not do that with. I had a new pair of panties every day.
Yes,
So
yes, me too.
yeah, so I
Essential.
ended up getting 30 pairs of panties. I realized that early on that I could make my wardrobe last 30 days easy. And in fact, that was one of the things I got rid of. I had brought too many clothes,
Yes,
so I bought more panties and got rid of a lot of clothes. And I don't remember the exact things, but I just remember there were so many things I thought I needed.
yeah.
Like even I used to scuba dive and I brought that stuff. But then, I mean, I'm not on a sailboat, I'm on a RV. So I kept the mask and snorkel, but then eventually I got rid of everything else because I just didn't use it. And I had wetsuits with me and I got rid of that, and I really pared it down to my road bike, my mountain bike, and my kayak for my like
Yes,
outdoor toys, you
essential
know.
things
Yeah, the essential
for
things.
you.
So there was
Yes,
just things that I brought that, to me, everything like it needs to be useful
yes, and
and
use.
used, and it needs to have a lot of times multiple uses. So it was just, I'd say after about a year and a half, it was one of those things where if I looked at something and I haven't touched it since I hit the road, I was like, it's time for you to go.
Yes,
So I don't even remember the exact things other than what I've shared, but there was a good number of things I got rid of. One was a barbecue. Because I
yes,
loved grilling.
yes,
And I traveled with a small barbecue for a while, and then I was just like, some grilled meat here and there is not worth the extra propane in this grill. So,
yeah.
like, a year and a half in, I said, "Yeah, I'm leaving the grill behind."
Well, Ken and I lived on board our sailboat for 6.5 years. It was 10 meters long, and we sailed through the South Pacific Islands. And I thought that I was pretty good because as a kid growing up, we'd done lots of camping, and we used to go for 6 weeks up the Mozambique coast with just a little Morris Minor Traveller, which is like a station wagon, very tiny vehicle, and a Volvo. And we towed our two like cottage tents, and I had two brothers and an uncle and my mum and dad. And we did this for 6 weeks. So thought I was really good at traveling light. And then after COVID stopped us, we sort of started going through everything in the boat. I pulled out, honestly, like 2 suitcases full of stuff that we hadn't used while we were away, and they were clothes. People look at us. Ken and I travel. If we fly, we just take carry on. It doesn't matter how long you're going. In Australia, we have what we call op shops, opportunity shops that are for like the Salvation Army and other charities. So you can always buy something very cheaply if
Yes.
you run out or those clothes wear out or get stained or full of grease or whatever. And
Yeah.
we've learned that they are not the important thing, really, at all.
No. No. And I agree with you. I'm in New Hampshire right now, and there's a farm that I've made friends with the young owners of it, and every Monday is planting day. So on Mondays, I plan to go there in the afternoons and stay till about 5:30 in the evening. But the problem is I'd pare down my clothes to a point to where, like, I didn't have pants that I wanted to ruin. I had one pair that I didn't care about, and I
Yes,
ended up wearing that same pair of pants every Monday, and they got holes in them. But I did just what you said. I went to the local Goodwill, and
yes,
I bought 3 pairs of pants that I won't take with me. They're just farm pants, and
yes.
I think I paid $10 for 3 pairs of pants, and it's like,
No,
a
it's
lot of
great.
people don't realize that if you actually need clothes, like, it's easy to get more and not break the bank.
Yes, that's true. So do you pick up work as you go?
No, I actually when I was a firefighter, I went back and got training and certified as a coach and mentor.
I forgot that bit.
Yeah, and I did it kind of for fun. I just really enjoyed it. But then before I hit the road, I knew I needed some kind of income. So I worked really hard for about a year and a half before I finally hit the road to grow that to a profitable level. And
Yes.
so I've been doing it for 11 years now, and it's been my sole source of income for a little over 9. That's afforded all my travels because actually the way I live, because I don't like campgrounds. So I've outfitted my trailer with solar panels and composting toilets and everything you need to survive off grid. And so most years, I spend only a few $100s on campgrounds for just when I really need them. And other than that, I'm off grid and I don't have a mortgage, I don't have rent. So I enjoy my work and I don't have to work that much because it doesn't cost much to live the way I do.
I love it. That's terrific. Yeah,
Yeah.
just fabulous. And so when you traveling, where do you decide you want to stay? What place draws you to stop here a while?
Usually it's places far out in nature, like away from any city lights and in quiet and beautiful.
Yep.
And oftentimes it's near water, I've realized. Like, I really enjoy water, whether it's a lake or a river or the ocean,
Yes,
you
me
name
too.
it. Or
Yes,
even a small stream just to go to sleep and hear the string babbling at night. Like, it's a treat to be near any kind of water.
I agree. I absolutely agree. Yes. And so initially, did you feel lonely or did you just feel the solitude?
No, initially, well, because when I hit the road by myself, that was never the plan. When I was planning it for those 2.5 years, I thought I was going to go with my boyfriend at the time, and we split up. And then that's actually part of the what got me on the road in a pretty quick fashion was when we split up. I was like, oh, forget it, let's just do this. But and I for the first month or two, I was fine, and then the loneliness hit. And what I realized later, it was, I had predicted a future in my mind of what it would be like to travel. And it wasn't by myself. And
Yes.
so a lot of my loneliness came from wishing for a life that actually wasn't happening.
Yeah. I
And
think that's human nature, really.
it is. It is. Most of our struggle and strife comes from imagining a future and then being upset when it doesn't happen. And so, yeah, so a good bit of the first year, I was super lonely and actually wondering what the heck I was doing and wishing I could, you know, snap my fingers and get my job back and my house back and my stuff back. I was just like, what did I do? But deep inside, is not fun as it felt. There was something that was just like, carry on, like,
Yes.
see what
Yep.
happens. And I'm
Yep.
so glad I listened to that still small voice that said, carry on, because there was a point, less than a year and a half in, where just everything shifted. And it was interesting because nothing actually changed in how I was living or what I was doing. It was
Yes.
it was a shift in how I perceived life. And then from that point on, it's just been mostly incredible, you know?
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
And so, how long do you decide to stay anywhere? Because Ken and I are about to. We have also a camper van, but it's just a small thing, nothing as big as your great big. I can't remember the name of it. Your rig that you live in,
Yes. Mhm.
and we find it because are used to living in a 10-meter boat, and Ken has rejigged it the back, redesigned it so that we lifted the bed up high because we're both short, so we can sleep across the width of the vehicle rather than sideways. And it's given us so much room. So we have a inflatable dinghy and a motor to drive it, all the fishing gear and the golf gear. And we're ready to set off for 4 months in Australia. And we have a vague plan, but we're very much of if something catches our eye or we feel really good there, we just stay for a while. And if we don't get to the end of the plan, it doesn't matter. We just wing it all the time. And I wondered
Yes.
if you did the same thing.
I do. And that's part of the gift of not staying in campgrounds, of living out in the wild, is I
Yes.
don't need to make reservations, and
Yes.
there's rarely ever a time where there's somewhere I have to be. So I don't even plan where I'm going most of the time. I just wander and I end up somewhere really cool. A lot of times I just, meet the locals and you kind of get in to be friends with them. And then eventually someone will say, have you been here? And then they'll show me a spot on the map and say, you got to go. And then I'm like, well, cool. Like if my soul is tickled, if sounds great to
Yes.
me, then I'll go. And if I get there and it's lovely, I'll stay long. And if I get there and it's not my cup of tea, I might stay for a day or a few and leave, So
Yes.
so it's all very fluid. Like I don't
I love it.
plan, and And I just when I'm really enjoying a place, I stay until there's somewhere else to go.
Yeah, I like that very much. So perhaps what we should have done in the beginning is actually tell our listeners where you've actually traveled so far, because you've done nearly 2 laps all the way around America.
Yes, I've done many, many laps. And most, if I was to draw out where I've been, it would just look like a lunatic took a crayon and scribbled. Like there's no rhyme or reason. But I've been to every US state, and I've been to all the Canadian provinces except for the 3 at the very top, like up by
Yes.
Alaska. So
Mhm.
the Yukon and the Northwest Territories and one other. Other than that, I've been to all of Canada. And then 2, I just by accident, which is usually how I find things out, I realized how simple it is to store your rig. Like most campgrounds, at least back when, pre-COVID, like in 2017, 18, and 19, which is when I did this a lot. Most campgrounds, it was between $60 and $80 to just unhook and leave your rig sitting there
Yes.
and for a month. So it'd be
Gosh,
between
yeah.
$60 and $80 for a month. So what I do when I needed to or wanted to go somewhere, I would just find a campground near a large airport that had good flights, because I could
Yes.
go anywhere. So I'd find the
Yes.
best price and flights and then find a campground near that airport and then take an Uber to the airport, leave my house and go. And so I've seen, and I like to go to places just like how I travel on land in the US and Canada. I like to go to places where a lot of other people aren't going.
I
So
do. We are kindred spirits.
yes. So I went to Europe, but I didn't go to, Italy and France. I went to, like Slovakia and
Yes.
Slovenia and Croatia and
Magnet.
Bosnia and Austria and all the Eastern European countries that actually aren't, there are people that go there for tourists, but not as many as the big name ones.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
I went to Brazil, and a lot of people were scared for me. They're like, "Oh, you shouldn't go to Brazil as a single woman, and you know no one." And I had the best time. And
Yes.
and it,
I
so
think
yeah,
if you travel as a single person, you actually have more connection with the locals
yes,
and fellow travelers, because they tend to, there's no intimidation, or they just converse and share and things like that. Whereas as a couple, I noticed the difference was mostly they're all right, everybody's good. I've never had a bad experience, but until you get to know the locals, only then do they share you something. Whereas if you're a single person, they share it earlier. Does that make sense?
it does completely. I found that to be true, and I feel privileged that I've been able to travel on my own so much because of that. And I learned especially in my European travels, like I went to Germany, I went to Berlin, and a lot of places like that, I'll rent a place on purpose. Like I'll go on Airbnb looking specifically for a room in someone's house. Like I don't
Yes.
want my own place.
Yes,
So I'll
for
get a
sure.
room in someone's house, and then I get there, and then they'll invite me to dinner, and I'll be like, "Okay, I don't like touristy stuff. I'm not
Yes.
into museums, but tell me, where would you go if you were here for 4 days? Like what were the no miss things that most tourists would never hear of?" And then they would let me in, and then what was exciting is they'd tell me where to go, and then they would be like, "Come back for dinner tomorrow night. We want to hear all about it." And
Oh,
so then
goodness.
I end up
Lovely.
having this family away from, like this family that I become a part of during my few days or a week there, and it's
Yes.
just lovely. And
Yes, yes, that's
even in
correct.
my RV, in my book I share a story about a couple I met in Quebec. And the husband did not speak any English, and I don't speak French. And the wife spoke enough English to where we could usually communicate.
Is this the
And
fishing story? No.
yes,
Yeah, I love this.
yes, and Fabian, the husband, at one point, he put his hand on my shoulder, and his wife, Danielle, was translating, so it was like every sentence she would translate,
Yes.
and he was just like, "If you were a man, you would not be welcome on my boat. If you were a couple, you would not be welcome on," you just kept saying all the things, "You would not be welcome on my boat," and you said, "But you alone, you're welcome on my boat, and the big test is, can you fish?" And
Yes.
then they were just laughing. But I love that story because most people aren't that blatant, you know?
No.
And I love that he said what I think most everyone thinks,
Yes.
"Single woman, come hang out. Anyone else, nah."
No, that's really amazing. So
Yeah.
it sounds like you've absolutely found yourself and where you need to be, and I think that's wonderful. So what does enough mean after I thought it was 7 years of living simply, but it's more than 7 years now, isn't it?
Yeah, so the book I wrote the book when it was 7 years, but, it's
That's
been a
what I
couple
thought, yeah.
years. But yes, that's a big question. Thank you for asking. But enough, I live by what I call the tickles of my soul, and
I
that's
like that.
just
I like
the
that.
inner knowings. A lot of people call it following your heart or your gut feeling or your intuition. And honestly, like that needs very little.
Yes,
Like, it's nice to have a good, comfortable place to sleep. It's good to not be hungry. And then to me, everyone's different, but to me, nature just fills my soul. And
absolutely.
and really, good people to hang out with here and there, love in your heart, and contentment. I think contentment is another thing.
Yes, yes, very much so. Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
like I feel like contentment relates to kind of what I joked around about that first year, how I was not content. I was the opposite of content, mainly because I was wanting a life that I actually wasn't living,
No, yep, that's true.
So I think a big part of enough is being really content, really okay with exactly what's happening. And I think that's it.
I think you define that very well. Yes,
Yeah.
and I've had many hiccups in my life. My first husband died when I was just 30 with 2 young kids, and I got gaslit by the second one, managed to escape that one, and then the third one, he also died on me, and I just reinvent myself. And when my last partner was on his deathbed, he was dying of advanced melanoma, he said to me, "It's my deathbed, and I want you to make me a promise that you go and find somebody else to have exploring with and love." I said, "I'm 60, for goodness sake. Who does that?" He said, "I don't care." And I picked up the phone, phoned my daughter, and says, "She's promised me this on my deathbed, so you have to make sure it happens." And we just laughed to pacify him, and if it made him happy, that was good. And then after a while, when I'd got back home to Australia, the kids said to me, "I think it's about time that you started doing this, so we're gonna put you onto RSVP." Do you know what RSVP is? It's a
No.
date an online dating site, a bit like Tinder, but not quite as explicit. Probably for
Gotcha.
old far.
A little tamer.
A little tailmate, that's it. And yeah, so I met him and I found a soulmate and just have traveled, and he completely sees the world like I do. There's very little we don't disagree on because we just love nature. We love the earth. We love art. We love traveling, and we can't get enough of it. And we like exploring and doing things. And we live on a really tight budget because we don't have much. And this is good. We own a house. His mum, who's 94, lives here when we're away. And so life can be what you make it. And I promise you, enough is really all you need.
Yes.
And to find somebody else who feels the same way is just a lovely connection. And so, what advice would you give people who think, "I wonder if this is worth doing, or should I do that, or what should I do?" Because there are many people out there who are not really very happy in the way their world is, and they just accept it because everybody else is paying off a house or having all these things and stuff. I'm not really into stuff.
Yes, me either. Although, I can't say I was ever really, really into stuff. I thought of myself as a minimalist, but actually living this lifestyle, I realized I wasn't a minimalist at all in my old life. So, and a part of I'm glad you brought up this stuff because, my advice for anyone, and it doesn't even have to be about travel, but
No, that's true.
we all know what it feels like when we're being drawn to do something or be something different than we are. And most of the time, like that's a very settled feeling that usually comes from our chest, our gut, somewhere in there.
Yes, indeed.
And then there's the noisy talk in our head that is usually either trying to talk us into something that we don't actually wanna do or to talk us out of something we really do wanna do. And honestly, if you look at little kids, they don't live in that space most of the time because they haven't been taught to do that yet.
Yes,
The
yes.
little ones.
Yep.
They're just really good at being in the moment, and that's why to me you can watch a child, like say a 3 or 4-year-old go through like a lifetime of emotions in an hour. They can be
Yes.
happy and cuddly and very upset about something and then completely lost crying because they're so sad and then back to cuddly and then just full of giggles. And that could be 20 minutes in a toddler's life.
Yes.
And they're able to do that because they haven't been taught that any of that's wrong or they should be feeling a certain way or doing something different. And so I like to share with people that it's possible to live with the heart of a child like that. But
Yes.
with all of our knowledge that we've gained through the lives that we've lived so far. But the biggest part of that is letting go of a lot of the things that we've been taught by society. Like, you need this, whether it's a house, a car, a job, the status, the money, the bank account, you name it. Like, what if we didn't need any of that? And it's
Yeah.
fine if you have some of those. There's nothing wrong with it. It's lovely. But to base our life and our decisions on getting those things that are actually not needed and not a part of the enough that me and you both know is enough.
Yes.
So that was the long beginning to the advice I would give to someone is, what if you could let go of all the ideas of the things you think you should do or need to do and actually just listen to your heart, listen to the tickles of your soul
Yes, I
and
like.
and just follow that. And it might seem very scary. Like it was scary for me. I was, when I sold my house and quit my job, like I was like, "Oh my gosh, I sure hope one day I'm not gonna regret this." And I was really concerned that I might one day say, "I so regret doing this." And I can say I've never felt that a second in the last 9 years. I'm so glad I didn't listen to that what if. So instead of living by what ifs, just live by the tickles of your soul and play it as an experiment. Like, just you can even start small, whatever that means to you. Just start small and start following those tickles, following the nudges and letting that guide you instead of the what ifs or the shoulds. And then as you feel more comfortable, like do something that seems like a big deal. And before long, by following those nudges, you'll realize there's not really that many really big deals. Like
So
looking back,
true.
quitting my job and selling all my stuff, it felt like a really big deal back then. And now I look back, I'm like, oh, that was just a part of my journey. That was just a step in my journey. So that's it, is getting used to playing and living in the unknown.
I love that. Thank you very much for sharing that. And thank you so much for being my guest. And if anybody would like to get to know, I will put a link to your book because your book is lovely,
Thank you.
The Perfect Unfolding. And one final thing, what tip would you give on if you were traveling and something went wrong?
That's a good one. Just to take one step at a time, you
I
know?
love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
like I feel like, because me too, when I first started out, something would happen and I would just want to just shrink into a puddle of goo and say, "Oh, I just want to sit here and cry." And it's fine, you can sit there and cry. But actually, something always happens. So
It
whether
does.
it's somebody coming along that offers a helping hand, or you just start trying things, or if you have cell service, get on YouTube and look up the problem that you're having. If it's like mechanical or something, you could help with. And if it's nothing anyone else can help with, if it's just an internal thing, just be in the quiet. But know that problem isn't going to seem like such a big deal at some point.
Mm. Kristy, thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Joining. Thank you for joining us on this journey with Kristy Halvorsen. If today's conversation has sparked something inside you, whether it is a desire to travel, simplify your life, spend more time in nature, or simply listen a little more closely to your own inner voice, I encourage you to check out Kristy's memoir, Perfect Unfolding. As always, you'll find photographs, links, and more information about today's guest over on the Travel With Us a While blog. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review and share it with someone who dreams of living a little differently. And if you have a story to tell of your own that you'd like to share, I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, wherever you are in the world, may your journey unfold exactly as it needs to. Travel with us a while. Bron.